What the f...
Major sighting here.
The San Pedro haunting is regarded as one of the most extensively documented cases in paranormal history, largely because it includes photographic evidence of a violent supernatural encounter captured at the exact moment it happened. In the late 1980s, single mother Jackie Hernandez moved into a home in San Pedro, California, with her children following a difficult marriage. The house represented a fresh start. Within a year or two, however, disturbing activity began to surface. One night, Jackie entered a bedroom and saw a gray-colored man seated on her children's bunk bed. She described it as radiating anger, its presence heavy and hostile. The activity soon escalated. During a visit from a neighbor, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. A painting had been violently torn from the wall, leaned against the sink, and the nails that once held it in place had been deliberately removed and arranged point side up on the floor, which seemed to be an act of aggression. Photographs taken inside the home later revealed unexplained balls of light. Even more disturbing, a red substance began seeping into the kitchen from the attic above. Scientific analysis identified it as human male blood mixed with iodine, with high copper content. When Jackie attempted to look into the attic herself, she claimed a disembodied, heavyset male head lunged toward her. Paranormal investigators and photographers Jeff Wheatcraft and Gary Boehm eventually examined the attic. After searching, Jeff announced there was nothing there. Moments later, however, he dropped his flashlight and cried out. Unable to see in the darkness, Gary instinctively triggered his camera flash for illumination and captured a horrifying image. Jeff was suspended from the attic ceiling. A clothesline was wrapped tightly around his neck and fastened to a nail above him. His head pressed against the ceiling with visible force. Gary rushed to free him, and when they escaped the attic, deep red marks were visible around Jeff's neck.
Right now, Jeff, what happened?
Put something around my neck.
Look at his neck.
Oh my God.
Okay, Jeff, please get down.
I gotta get out of here.
Whoa.
It's definitely raising me up.
Jeff, please come here. Get this for me. Keep the mic on. Keep the mic on. Jeff, here you go, buddy. Here you go. Here you go. What the hell happened? Are you okay, buddy?
God.
Look at his neck.
Look,
Jeff,
come on.
what's behind your neck?
I don't know what's on my neck.
Like a
Come on
noose.
down. Come on down.
A piece of rope.
Oh,
Gary, get down out of there, buddy.
I knew you should.
Can you find my glasses?
Gary,
Glasses.
Jeff.
Look at this. Look at
Jeff,
this.
turn the camera.
Jeff, are you okay?
Jeff,
I'm fine.
Jeff, tell me what happened, buddy.
Well, I don't know, Gary. I told Gary that there was nothing happening up there, and he turned around and came. He was coming this way. All of a sudden, I feel this thing around my neck, and it's got me hanging, and it's pulling on my leg.
You were hanging?
Yeah, I was hanging. Gary had to bring me down.
Prior inspections had found no rope, twine, or clothesline stored in the attic, making its sudden appearance impossible to explain.
That I could see that this rope was around his neck.
It ended up over my head like this, and then it was twisted like this. I don't know how far or to what degree, but I know it was twisted because it was tied around my neck. And then it was hung up over the nail on one of the cross members that go across the attic. I really feel that now. All of a sudden I had this thing around my neck, and it's pulling me like this up and hooks me on something. Gary had to take me off.
Look at his neck. Look at this. Look at this.
Look at his neck. Oh my God.
If I had not been there, he would have strangled, and he would have
probably died there in that attic if I had not been here to get him down, because he didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I was up my feet and hung me on something. Gary had to pull me off.
Look at this. Look at this.
I don't want to go through it again.
Terrified, Jackie and her children moved out of the home. Investigators later claimed to communicate with the entity through a Ouija board. They identified the spirit as Herman Hendrickson, a 38-year-old man who had drowned in San Pedro in the 1930s. According to the sessions, his killer was still in the house. Hendrickson allegedly confessed to attempting to kill Jeff, believing he resembled the man responsible for his death. Following a seance, reports of activity gradually diminished. By 1990, Jackie and her children had relocated elsewhere in Los Angeles, leaving the house and whatever lingered inside it behind. The photographs remain, frozen evidence of a moment when something unseen decided to make itself violently known. When people think of cryptids, they usually imagine something recognizably biological: flesh, bone, muscle, and teeth. The entity known as the Fresno Nightcrawler does not fit that expectation. In 2007, a Fresno, California resident named Jose installed a surveillance camera in his front yard after his dogs began barking persistently at night. Suspecting prowlers or potential burglars, he reviewed the footage shortly after midnight one night. What appeared on the screen was something far stranger. A thin, white, bipedal figure slowly entered the frame and crossed the yard. It had an elongated body, an extremely small head, and no visible arms. Its movement was deliberate and unnervingly slow, pausing briefly before continuing out of view. Moments later, a second, similar figure appeared, this one moving more quickly, with two clearly defined legs and a wide, swaying gait. The figures resembled little more than walking legs, as though a pair of pale trousers had detached themselves from a body and learned to move. Though their proportions made them appear tall, estimates suggest the entities were only between 2 and 4 feet in height. Jose contacted the Spanish-language television network Univision, which in turn alerted investigators from the Mutual UFO network. A MUFON representative visited Jose in person and described him as nervous and scared. Unfortunately, the original recording had been captured on a surveillance VCR system that routinely overwrote older footage. As a result, the only surviving evidence is grainy off-screen camcorder recording of the video being played on a monitor. During the investigation, Jose showed MUFON the fenced perimeter of his property. His brother, who was present at the time of the sighting, claimed to have noticed small footprints in the yard. By the time investigators arrived, however, physical traces had washed away. Skeptics have proposed a number of explanations, including a person on stilts, a puppet or pants pulled by wires, or digital manipulation. When the footage is viewed using emboss and inversion effects, no obvious strings or supports are visible. The sci-fi program, Fact or Faked: Paranormal Files, attempted to recreate the creature using a physical puppet, but was unable to convincingly match the original appearance and movement. However, a YouTube creator known as ParaBreakdown seemed to be able to recreate it using pajamas and a fishing and glide line. He then added video noise to conceal the rigging, though all of this required multiple attempts. Others believe the footage documents something genuinely anomalous, possibly extraterrestrial in origin. Reports of similar Nightcrawler sightings have surfaced in different parts of the world. Fresno animal control officials stated they had never encountered anything like it, nor received comparable reports in the area. The Fresno Nightcrawler remains unsettling precisely because it defies easy classification. It does not behave like an animal, nor does it resemble a costume in motion. It simply walks, quietly, briefly, and without explanation, leaving behind an image that feels less like a creature and more like a mistake in reality itself. Witnesses typically describe UFOs as mechanical craft, disc-shaped, triangular, square, or oval. But on May 17, 2006, residents of a remote area in Monterrey, Mexico, reported something far more unsettling. Drifting silently across the skyline was a humanoid figure. It appeared hunched, with its legs drawn up as if seated in midair, moving in a straight, deliberate path. A sharp, pointed shape rose from its head. Local residents identified the figure not as a machine, but as a bruja, a witch. In regional folklore, brujas are said to possess powers of healing, divination, and curses, and are capable of killing. The mountain where the footage was recorded is steeped in legend, believed to be a dwelling place for such entities. The area has long been associated with witchcraft and dark magical practices, described by locals as a crucible of old black magic. As implausible as this sounds, the story gained traction through eyewitness testimony from police officers. One officer claimed that shortly after the sighting, the entity descended directly in front of him. He described a figure dressed entirely in black, with dark skin, enormous eyes, and long claws, wearing what appeared to be a hood or elongated pointed hat. Its head hung low before it suddenly looked up at him. The officer said it touched him. He instinctively covered his face in terror. He later reported seeing two of these figures flying in circles above a cemetery located directly beneath the flight path of the object seen in the video. A fellow officer corroborated the account, stating that he also witnessed the creature flying and that it attacked. He even produced a drawing of what he claimed to have seen. The incident was featured on a Mexican television program. A local UFO research group concluded the figure was humanoid, possibly a witch, noting that it appeared to be wearing a cape and pointed hat. Others proposed a more extraterrestrial explanation, suggesting an alien riding some unknown vehicle. Image analyst Ben Radford ruled out conventional aircraft, stating it was not a plane, helicopter, or gyrocopter, and dismissed the possibility of a drone, noting that such technology was not commonly available in 2006. Whatever crossed the skies above Monterey that night, it defies easy explanation and remains unresolved. In 2007, a homeowner began noticing something deeply unsettling about his pantry door. Each night, he would close it before going to bed, but by morning, it would be mysteriously open. Unable to explain the pattern, he decided to set up a camera and leave it recording overnight. On September 19th, the camera captured the door opening on its own. The man was puzzled, and when he closed the door, he witnessed this. Pressed against the glass was a pale, ghostly figure. Startled, the man recoils, backing away in visible shock at what he had just seen. After a tense pause, he forced himself to open the door, but when he did, the pantry was empty. There was no one inside. The man has maintained that the footage is 100% real. He later produced a documentary detailing the incident. According to him, his life unraveled after that night. He described a steady cascade of misfortune, attributing it to the entity he encountered. Eventually, he sold the house and moved away, convinced that whatever revealed itself behind the glass had never truly left. Whether the footage shows a genuine paranormal encounter or something more mundane, the image of a human-shaped presence pressing silently from the other side of the door continues to unsettle those who watch it, raising the uncomfortable question of how long it had been there, waiting to be seen. In October 2015, residents of Foshan, China, looked up to see something that defied explanation. It was not the familiar silhouette of a flying saucer or a streak of light, but something far more bizarre and unsettling. What appeared to be an entire city suspended in the clouds. The footage, reportedly recorded by a local resident, shows massive, shadowy blocks hovering in the sky, arranged like towering buildings. The sight was so surreal that viewers nicknamed it Castle in the Sky, a reference to the floating city from an animated film. According to reports, hundreds to thousands of people witnessed the phenomenon. It remained visible for several minutes before silently fading from view. The most popular explanation points to a rare atmospheric illusion known as a fata morgana. This type of superior mirage occurs when light bends through layers of warm air resting over cooler air, causing distant structures to appear stretched, distorted, or lifted high above the horizon. Some experts also suggested the presence of radiation fog, which can create ghostly outlines that vanish as temperatures change. Not everyone was convinced, however. Some speculated the display was artificial, citing conspiracy theories such as Project Bluebeam, which claims advanced holographic technology could be used to stage false supernatural or extraterrestrial events to manipulate public perception. Others proposed a more localized explanation, suggesting the phenomenon may have been a controlled experiment by China designed to gauge public reaction. There were also more extreme interpretations. A few observers believed the apparition was the result of a temporal anomaly, a brief overlap between parallel realities, allowing another world to intrude into our own before snapping back into place. Skeptics, meanwhile, dismissed the footage as an elaborate hoax created through digital editing. Some meteorologists even stated that such an atmospheric effect should not have been possible under the reported conditions. And yet, despite the theories and denials, the image of a city hanging silently in the sky remains unresolved. For those who witnessed it, the question still lingers. Was it merely a trick of light, or a glimpse of something that was never meant to be seen? In March of 2017, a group of trail bike riders were navigating a remote stretch of wilderness in Aceh, Indonesia. The day was clear and sunlit, the kind that makes the forest feel inviting rather than threatening. That calm ended abruptly when something appeared on the dirt trail ahead of them.
Balikin, balikin, oh, tahan dulu, tahan. Barang ada, pisau.
Standing in their path was a small humanoid figure, slight in stature and clutching what appeared to be a spear. The moment it noticed the riders, it bolted into the forest with startling speed. Stunned, the bikers attempted to follow, revving their engines in pursuit, but the figure vanished into dense, shoulder-high grass. They dismounted and searched the area on foot, finding no tracks, no broken foliage, and no sign that anything had been there at all. Speculation quickly followed. Some suggested the figure may have been a member of the legendary Manti tribe, a group of pygmy people said to inhabit the deepest forests of Aceh. Others pointed to a far older possibility, Orang Pendek, a cryptid similar to Bigfoot. For more than a century, creatures matching this description have been reported by indigenous forest tribes, local villagers, Dutch colonists, and even Western scientists and explorers. The footage was uploaded by Pedro, a YouTuber known for documenting trail biking across Indonesia's islands. His channel contains no paranormal themes, and the video itself lacks the hallmarks of staged content, lending it a sense of authenticity. The clip gained enough attention that regional government officials publicly discussed sending an investigative team to the area. Pedro, however, refused to disclose the exact location within Aceh where the encounter occurred. He stated that revealing it could put the creature at risk from human interference. He also urged viewers not to search for or hunt whatever was captured on camera. Whatever the riders encountered that day did not linger. It appeared briefly, fled without a sound, and dissolved back into the jungle, leaving behind only a few seconds of footage and a question that the forest has no obligation to answer. A police officer attempts to pull over a white car. Instead of stopping, the driver abruptly accelerates, turning a routine traffic stop into a high-speed pursuit. The vehicle makes a sudden U-turn and briefly disappears from view. When the officer regains sight of it, the car swerves erratically across the road. The car then veers off the pavement before making a sharp right turn. That is when the impossible happens. In a matter of seconds, the car appears on the opposite side of a fence and speeds away into the distance, without any visible opening, brake, or hesitation. It looks as though the vehicle has passed straight through solid metal, like a specter ignoring the laws of physics. The stunned officer is forced to stop, unable to comprehend what he has just witnessed. The incident became known as the ghost car. The only glimpse of the driver occurs earlier in the footage during the U-turn, yet even then, no identifying features are visible. The footage gained enough notoriety to be featured on the sci-fi series Fact or Faked Paranormal Files. After conducting a series of controlled tests, investigators concluded that the car could have crossed the fence by simply driving through it. The bottom of the fence loosened, allowing the car to drive straight through like a curtain. By the time the cop turned around, the fence stabilized as if it never moved. For some, this puts the mystery to rest, but others may not be convinced. You decide. In June 2019, A home security camera captured one of the more peculiar and unsettling clips to circulate online. The footage shows a small, humanoid figure moving across a residential driveway in the middle of the night. At one point, it even does a chicken dance. The figure's appearance immediately drew comparisons to Dobby, the house elf from the Harry Potter films. It is extremely thin, with elongated limbs and what appear to be disproportionately large ears. Moments before the figure enters the frame, a shadow can be seen shifting along the right edge of the image, believed to be the door to the house. When the figure finally emerges, it walks with an unnatural, almost cartoon-like gait that seems at odds with normal human movement. Despite initial speculation, the footage is generally not believed to be computer-generated. The figure casts a visible shadow and appears reflected in both a parked car and a nearby window. The driveway belonged to Vivian Gomez, a mother living with her 9-year-old son, Bobby. Early theories proposed that the figure was simply Bobby playing a prank, possibly with underwear pulled over his head. The figure's small stature does roughly align with his height. However, in an interview with Inside Edition, Bobby denied being responsible, and his mother stated she would never allow him outside alone at night. Gomez later said she believes the figure disappeared into a field across the street from her home. Others suggested the video may have been viral marketing for the location-based augmented reality game Harry Potter: Wizards Unite, which launched the same month the footage surfaced online. However, Gomez has no apparent connection to the game, and no company or individual has ever claimed responsibility for the video. If the figure is merely a child playing a joke, it raises uncomfortable questions, particularly regarding the figure's unusually thin arms and legs and the unnatural way it moves through the frame. In the quiet village of St. Osyth in Essex, England, stands a small cottage known simply as the Cage. Beneath its unassuming exterior is a history steeped in fear. During the 16th century, the building served as a prison for those accused of witchcraft. Among them was Ursula Kemp, a local healer condemned and hanged in 1582 after being blamed for the deaths of 2 children. The Cage continued to function as a jail for men, women, and even children until 1908, long after its grim reputation had taken hold. The structure was later converted into a private residence, but its past refused to remain buried. In 1921, 2 female skeletons were unearthed in the garden. One is widely believed to have been Ursula Kemp herself. Former occupants of the house have reported persistent disturbances, unexplained footsteps echoing through empty rooms, sudden slamming noises, shadowy figures, and the apparent presence of children. Apparitions believed to be Ursula Kemp have been seen, alongside what witnesses describe as a far more hostile entity. One homeowner claimed she was violently pushed by unseen forces while pregnant, later reporting being slapped on the butt by a ghost. Her experiences were severe enough that she eventually fled the house and later documented them in a book. In January 2018, a team of paranormal investigators conducted an overnight investigation inside the Cage. While several investigators stood around a table, others monitored the scene through a camera in another room. For a time, nothing appeared out of the ordinary. Then, without warning, the camera captured something unsettling.
What the f***? Your face has completely changed. Doesn't even look like a person.
The face of investigator Debbie Berman appeared to distort, briefly transforming into what viewers described as a witch-like visage. Her smile unnaturally widened as her eyes glowed white, and her expression resembled something inhuman. Alarmed, the team immediately told her to leave the room.
Right, Debbie, you need to come down here for a minute, please.
Weird, man.
Debbie later recounted the incident during an interview on the Travel Channel's Fright Club. She said the room had suddenly gone unnervingly silent, accompanied by a foul, musky odor. Moments later, she felt an intense burning sensation across her back. When examined, her skin appeared reddened, marked in the distinct shape of a hand with elongated fingers, as though she had been scalded. The side of her face was also inflamed, as if she was slapped. For many, the cage remains more than a historic relic. It is a place where the past still presses against the present, and where the echoes of accusation, punishment, and death may not have finished speaking. The Patterson-Gimlin film is a video recorded in 1967 by Roger Patterson and Robert Bob Gimlin, allegedly depicting Bigfoot. Shot in Northern California, the footage has since become the most famous, scrutinized pieces of Bigfoot evidence ever recorded, enduring decades of analysis, debate, and controversy. The film was captured along a tributary of the Klamath River near Bluff Creek, roughly 25 miles northwest of Orleans, California, within the Six Rivers National Forest. For many years, the precise filming location was lost due to dense regrowth following a major flood in 1964, but it was rediscovered in 2011. The area is just south of a stretch of creek informally known as the Bowling Alley, a place now steeped in legend. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were the only witnesses to the encounter. Patterson maintained until his death from cancer in 1972 that the creature was genuine. Gimlin has consistently denied any involvement in a hoax, largely avoiding public discussion for decades before beginning to speak more openly in the mid-2000s at interviews and Bigfoot conferences. According to Patterson, the footage was shot on October 20th, 1967, though some critics believe it may have been filmed earlier. Prior to this encounter, Patterson had developed a fascination with Bigfoot after reading an article by Ivan T. Sanderson in True magazine in 1959. He later self-published a book on the subject and, earlier in 1967, began work on a pseudo-documentary about tracking the creature. According to Patterson and Gimlin, the encounter occurred in the early afternoon as they rode on horseback along the east bank of Bluff Creek. As they rounded a large overturned tree near a logjam left by the 1964 flood, they noticed a figure on the opposite bank. Gimlin later described experiencing immediate shock. The figure was either crouched near the water or standing upright when first seen. Patterson initially estimated the figure's height at between 6.5 and 7 feet, later revising it upward to roughly 7.5 feet. Gimlin estimated it closer to 6 feet. The film depicts a large, bipedal, ape-like figure covered in dark hair, described variously as reddish-brown, black, or silvery brown, with visible musculature and prominent breasts, indicating it's a female. The figure's appearance closely matches traditional Bigfoot descriptions. Patterson stated that his horse reacted violently to the creature, forcing him to regain control before retrieving his camera. He ran toward the figure while filming, shouting to Gimlin to cover him with a rifle. The footage begins shakily, stabilizing as Patterson closes the distance. At approximately 80 feet away, the creature turns its head and upper body to glance back at the men, a moment that would become the most iconic frame of the film. The figure continued walking, disappearing behind trees, briefly reappearing, and then vanishing entirely into the forest as the film ran out. Gimlin followed at a distance on horseback, before being called back by Patterson, who feared the presence of a second creature. The entire encounter lasted less than 2 minutes. Afterward, the men recovered their horses, filmed large footprints in the area, and made plaster casts of the tracks. They attempted to follow the trail, but eventually lost it in dense undergrowth. Supporters of the film argue that the creature's gait, body rotation, and apparent muscle movement are difficult to replicate with a costume, especially given the era. What's more, it's unlikely hoaxers would go out of their way to make a costume with fake breasts. However, skeptics counter that the figure's calm, almost indifferent walk past the men is inconsistent with how an unknown wild creature might behave. Others point to inconsistencies in the men's accounts, questions about the film's development timeline, and the possibility of a man in a gorilla suit. Though opinions differ on how feasible such a suit would have been in 1967. The footage has since been stabilized, enhanced, and dissected frame by frame. Despite decades of analysis, no consensus has been reached. Whether the film captures an unknown hominid, an elaborate hoax, or something in between, the Patterson-Gimlin film remains an enduring mystery, an unsettling glimpse of something walking calmly out of the wilderness, glancing back just long enough to be remembered. On August 11, 2011, residents in parts of Ukraine reported hearing a sound so unnatural that many described it as apocalyptic, as if the world itself were groaning under strain. The noise persisted for more than 20 minutes. In the recorded footage, a woman is seen walking her dog while pushing a baby stroller, repeatedly stopping to scan the sky. In the background, a mother and her child can be heard discussing the sound.
Что, Аленка?
Там те звуки, они капают как небо, они нас пугают.
Пугают? А как ты думаешь, что это такое за звуки?
Знаю, они капают на небе, они далеко. Там они страшные.
The atmosphere is calm on the surface, yet charged with unease, as if something unseen is pressing down on the city. No official explanation was ever confirmed. The sound has been likened to massive horns blaring from the sky, or metal grinding violently against the earth. According to the individual who captured the footage, the noise was deafening and was reportedly heard as far as 30 to 40 kilometers away in neighboring cities. More disturbing were the effects reported by some witnesses. In the aftermath, individuals claimed to experience physical and psychological symptoms, including temporary aphasia and episodes of sleep paralysis. Those who were closer to the source of the sound reported more severe reactions. In the weeks that followed, reports of similar unexplained noises began surfacing in major cities around the world. The uploader of the video insisted the recording was neither a hoax nor a viral marketing stunt. Skeptics suggested the sound originated from large-scale underground construction, possibly tied to transit expansion. Others proposed a natural phenomenon known as a seismic hum, an ultra-low-frequency vibration of the planet caused by ocean waves interacting with the seafloor or by atmospheric turbulence. And then there were those who believed the explanation lay far beyond Earth itself. More than a decade later, the sound has never been conclusively identified. For those who heard it, the memory lingers, not as a solved mystery but as a reminder of how fragile reality can feel when the sky itself seems to cry out. In October at 3 a.m., a school's surveillance camera captures this in Cork, Ireland. At first, everything is quiet, but then, in the empty corridor, a chair in the corner lifts off the floor before dropping back down. A bag is then dragged from the top of a locker and falls to the ground. Moments later, a poster flies off the wall and a chair slides across the hallway on its own. From a second camera angle, lockers shudder back and forth. One swings open, scattering papers across the floor. Then, a sign suddenly flips over, as if struck by an unseen hand. When Deer Park Deputy Principal Aaron Wolfe first reviewed the footage, he forwarded it to Principal Kevin Barry, unable to explain what he was seeing. Wolfe, who had joined the school the previous year, had already been warned by staff about unexplained incidents in the past, hallways that grew unnaturally cold, and sounds resembling distant crying after hours. "We couldn't understand how this had occurred," Wolfe said. "If it is a prank, it's very well done." He added that since the footage surfaced, numerous people had come forward with stories claiming the school had long been haunted. Wolfe also revealed a troubling detail about the site's past. The school was built on land historically known as Green Gallows, where criminals were executed by hanging during the 19th century. Because the footage was recorded shortly before the school's Halloween charity event, some dismissed it as a hoax. Wolfe rejected that explanation, saying, "People have suggested that we've used a green screen or edited someone out. I wish our school had these types of resources. Others have suggested that fishing line is used. I don't see how fishing line could open the locker because the locker doors don't stay closed unless the latch on it is turned. Also, the corridor is on the first floor, and the window there behind the locker doesn't open. However, anything is possible." Wolfe later disclosed that a medium had contacted him with a warning, claiming that something would eventually happen to him one night that would make him a believer. The Loch Ness Monster is a legendary entity woven into the darker corners of Scottish folklore, said to dwell in the vast ink-black waters of Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands. It is most commonly described as an immense serpentine creature, long-necked, powerful, and disturbingly silent, with one or more shadowy humps breaking the surface of the water before vanishing without a trace. Among the countless alleged sightings, the most notorious remains the surgeon's photograph, the first widely publicized image purported to show the creature's head and neck. The photograph is attributed to Robert Kenneth Wilson, a London physician, who reportedly witnessed the being while traveling near the lake on April 20th, 1934. Newspapers eagerly chronicled his account of a small head atop a swan-like neck, rising eerily 3 feet above the water's surface. The following day, the Daily Mail published the now iconic image Wilson claimed to have captured. A curved shape emerging from the dark lake, as though the loch itself were breathing. For decades, the photograph stood as chilling proof that something unknown lurked beneath Loch Ness. Skeptics countered with rational explanations: driftwood, birds, otters, eels, or even an elephant. But the image refused to lose its unsettling grip on the public imagination. Eventually, controversy swallowed the legend when it was reported that the photograph had been cropped, making the monster and ripples larger than they actually were, and that the creature itself was a toy submarine. In 1991, Christian Sperling reportedly confessed to fabricating the model as part of an elaborate act of revenge against the Daily Mail, orchestrated by disgraced big-game hunter M.A. Wetherill after he had previously been humiliated by a proven hoax. Yet, even in the face of confession and scientific scrutiny, belief persists. Teams of researchers have swept the loch with sonar, underwater drones, satellite technology, and DNA sampling. They found no definitive evidence of the Loch Ness monster, but the lack of evidence does not mean proof that the monster is fake. Loch Ness is a strange, ancient body of water, immensely deep, murky, and claustrophobic, riddled with dark trenches and rumored tunnels, disappearing into unknown depths. In a place where visibility dies within meters, and the water seems to swallow light itself, certainty becomes slippery. Evidence can be dismissed, photographs can be explained away, but the lingering unease, the feeling that something vast, hidden, and patient may still move beneath that black surface, remains very much alive. The loch keeps its secrets, and whatever waits in its depths, whether myth or something far less comforting, continues to watch in silence. One of the most widely reported UFO incidents in modern history unfolded over Phoenix, Arizona, on the night of March 13, 1997. As darkness settled over the city, eyewitnesses began to notice a series of bright lights emerging in a slow, deliberate arc across the sky.
Figure this one out. There's a double. There's a third one. Hey, Sue? All right, you tell me what it is. Oh, what do we got? Hey, Sue!
They appeared one by one, unnervingly precise, leading many to believe they were not separate objects at all, but part of a single, immense craft. Some observers claimed to have seen a massive carpenter's square, while others said they saw a V-shaped silhouette gliding overhead. The lights moved in perfect formation and produced no sound, an absence that only heightened the unease. Among the witnesses was Hollywood actor Kurt Russell, who at the time was an amateur pilot flying that night.
Oliver and I were flying in. I was flying him to go see his girlfriend, and we were on approach, and I saw 6 lights over the airport in absolute uniform in a V shape, and Oliver said to me, I was just looking at him, and I was coming in. We're maybe a half a mile out, and Oliver said, "Pa, what are those lights?" And I then it kind of like came out of my reverie, and I said, "I don't know what they are." I said, he said, "Are we okay here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna call in," and I reported it. And they said, "We're not painting anything. We don't show anything." I said, "Well, okay, I'm gonna declare it's unidentified, it's flying, and it's 6 objects." Mm-hmm. We landed. I taxied, dropped him off, took off, went back to LA. Never said a word, he never said a word. I never thought of it. 2 years later, Goldie is watching a television show when I came home. Yeah. And the show is on UFOs. But as I came home, "Hey honey, how's it going?" And I'm kind of hearing the TV going, and I stopped and I started watching, and it was on that event. Now that was the most viewed UFO event. Over 20,000 people saw that. And I'm watching this, and I'm feeling like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's like, why do I know this? You know what? And it's not clear to me. And finally, I said, Then they said the pilot reported it, a general aviation pilot reported it on landing. I'd never thought of it since then, and I said, that was me. That was me. And I said, wait a minute, I'll go to my logbooks. So I went to my logbooks, and there was the flight at that time, and I didn't mention anything about the UFO. The fascinating part of that to me is that it just went literally out of my head. Yeah. And Oliver never mentioned it. And had I not seen that show, I'd have never thought of it again.
Amazing.
That to me was the weird part.
Over time, the lights vanished, leaving the city unsettled and searching for answers. In the aftermath, Arizona Governor Fife Symington III held a press conference, assuring the public that those responsible had been identified.
Officers working undercover raided a home not far from the Capitol. And now I'll ask Officer Stein and his colleagues to escort the accused into the room so that we may all look upon the guilty party. And don't get him too close to me, please. This just goes to show that you guys are entirely too serious.
The man behind the mask, Symington Chief of Staff, Jay Haluk.
The announcement later proved to be a joke, a gesture that did little to calm the growing anxiety.
When it finally got here and we realized this thing was coming right over us, we really started getting antsy, and then when it went directly overhead without a sound, it was like that. It was so big.
You couldn't even hear the wind. It was so quiet. It was just, it just didn't even do anything. It just came through.
It was a giant V, all right? And the right side of the V went over us. The left side was like a couple blocks over it.
You just didn't know what to do. You know, it was just like, my God, how big is this thing?
Years later, in a twist of irony, Symington would admit that he himself had witnessed a UFO and had come to believe something extraordinary had occurred.
March 13th, 1997. This event called Lights Over Phoenix. What did you see?
Well, I saw a huge craft just kind of come right over Squaw Peak. That was, it was just breathtaking. Unquestionably, it was a UFO, which means unidentified flying object.
That doesn't mean we're being visited.
Well, it's nothing like anything I've ever seen.
And you're an Air Force guy.
Yeah, and a pilot. Got a lot of hours flying. So it was pretty breathtaking.
Officials later stated that the lights were merely military flares dropped during a training exercise. Yet for many who watched the sky that night, the explanation rang hollow. The lights did not drift, fall, or fade like flares. They hovered, moved with intention, and then disappeared, leaving behind a lingering question that still refuses to fade.
There's another one too. Where? Oh, look at that. There's another one.
No, we're just excited. We're not.
They keep coming.
Wait, whoa, look at them.
I got that one on video.
There's just 4 of them. Look at, there's 3 of them all together.
I got the third one popping.
There's one behind the chimney. One just flared up.
I got 4 of them. Major sighting here.
No, there's 5.
Oh!
Another one just showed up.
Whoa!
Maybe somebody's setting up lights.
Did you see that?
No, those are in the sky.
There's one underneath the house too.
There's one behind that chimney.
Okay, come
We need to go to
here.
Pedro.
I can't see how this works. How does this
Holy.
work?
Oh, you got. Have you seen that before?
No.
That's weird.
They're lined up in a pattern, man. There's geometry behind this.
I can't even get this. I've never seen it. Look at that.
Man, this is...
Let's see. Oh, there's 3 of them all lined up.
No,
4, Bill.
one
Bill, over here, there's 4.
Come look.
Yeah, I see.
Over the top right now.
What do they look like? Is it like this sphere before?
Yeah, they're spheres now.
Are they complete circles?
Yeah, they just transformed into circles right now, right as you're talking. Now they're not spheres.
On September 14th, 2003, surveillance cameras inside a Wingate hotel in Illinois captured an incident that has continued to unsettle viewers years later. The footage shows a security guard identified only as John stepping out of an elevator onto the second floor after reports of screaming were heard from room 209. No guest was registered to that room at the time, a detail that immediately raised concern. Throughout the encounter, a hotel security manager can be heard communicating with John over a walkie-talkie.
It should be 209. John, do you copy? It's room 209. Amy says nobody's checked into that room, and there's reports of screaming coming from that room.
As John approaches room 209, the sound of screaming suddenly becomes audible. He hesitates at the door, visibly shaken and reluctant to enter.
There's no one checked into that room. There should be nobody in there.
The manager informs him that the police are being contacted, but John, driven by a mix of duty and curiosity, decides to investigate before help arrives. Moments later, a white ethereal form appears to move out of the room. One of the lights then flickers. After several seconds of tense silence, John abruptly retreats into the hallway. He reports over the radio that no one was inside, yet the room showed signs of violent disturbance. Furniture overturned, sections of carpet torn up, and the shower running. The footage was later provided to the YouTube channel JimmyNut22, whose description claims hotel guests had repeatedly complained to the front desk about screams coming from that room. Over the years, similar reports of unexplained noises have allegedly been heard in room 209. Skeptics argue the video is an elaborate fabrication, pointing out that JimmyNut22 is believed to be a filmmaker named Turner Clay, who made a horror film called The Blackwell Ghost. Some even suggest that the security guard seen in the footage is Clay himself. JimmyNut22 has rejected these claims in the video description, stating that the audio is a mix of the security camera feed and a separate office recording system designed to capture robberies. He has also explained that the camera's focus on room 209 is unremarkable, noting the hotel was equipped with roughly 80 cameras monitoring doors and hallways. According to text in the video, the footage was not edited. Whether it was or wasn't, one thing's for certain: no one wants to stay in room 209. Among the most frequently cited pieces of alleged extraterrestrial evidence is a series of videos uploaded to YouTube in May 2011 by a channel known as Ivan0135. The footage is presented as leaked, classified KGB material, and appears to show a gray alien being interviewed or interrogated by Soviet officials. According to the uploader, the clips are part of 7 recordings supposedly made between 1942 and 1969. The source of the material is described only vaguely. The uploader claimed the footage was handed to them by a dying acquaintance who had once worked in a government position with access to classified archives. The recordings were allegedly transferred from cassette or reel-to-reel formats before being uploaded. In the video, the entity is referred to by the codename Skinny Bob, described as a captured extraterrestrial pilot. The being is said to originate from Zeta Reticuli, a binary star system long associated with UFO lore and the well-known Betty and Barney Hill abduction case. Visually, the figure closely matches the archetypal gray alien. The footage shows the entity moving and blinking with unsettling fluidity. In later scenes, it appears standing upright, dressed in dark clothing, its long fingers clearly visible. The final sequence depicts the being lying in a shallow, liquid-filled enclosure, reportedly resting or in a state of recovery. The Ivan 0135 channel uploaded additional clips allegedly drawn from the same archive. One appears to show military footage of a UFO hovering in the sky, followed by what looks like a crash site with a lifeless alien body on the ground. Another shows multiple extraterrestrial beings walking under escort. According to the accompanying descriptions, these entities were transported by special agents to meet with high-ranking officials during a diplomatic visit concerning matters of mutual interest. If the footage is fabricated, many argue it is unusually sophisticated, particularly for 2011, years before modern generative AI tools existed. Opinions remain sharply divided. Supporters point to the realism of the entity's movement and facial expressions as evidence of authenticity. Skeptics, however, note technical inconsistencies, blinking that appears unnaturally smooth, a lack of visible neck musculature during head movement, and film grain that seems to repeat in a loop, suggesting digital manipulation. The channel's owner later released a statement rejecting claims that the footage originated from any known film, television production, video game, or commercial project. One of the more persistent arguments in favor of authenticity is cost. Creating such footage at the time would have required advanced expertise, specialized equipment, and a budget estimated by some to be as high as $250,000, an implausible expense for a simple internet hoax. Yet, despite the video's notoriety, no individual or studio has ever claimed responsibility. Adding another layer to the story is an alleged Army whistleblower named Edward Abbott. Abbott has publicly stated that the Skinny Bob footage is genuine and claims he viewed the complete, unedited recording inside a sensitive compartmented information facility in 2008. More than a decade after its release, the footage remains unresolved, an artifact suspended between hoax and disclosure, unsettling not because of what it proves, but because of how convincingly it refuses to be dismissed. In the United States, Bigfoot is most often associated with the misty forests of the Pacific Northwest. Far less known is its alleged southern counterpart, a creature said to inhabit the swamps and backwaters of the American Southeast. Known as the skunk ape, it has been reported across Texas, Georgia, Louisiana, and most notably within the Florida Everglades. Witnesses describe the skunk ape as a large, black-furred primate with glowing red eyes. Its most defining trait, however, is its overwhelming stench. The name skunk ape derives from this odor, often described as rotten, sulfurous, and suffocating. Some theorize the smell originates from methane gases released by swamp environments, which cling to the creature's fur and intensify as it moves. Reports of the skunk ape stretch back to the 1960s and 1970s, but one of the most famous pieces of evidence surfaced in the autumn of 2000. Sarasota County authorities in Florida received an anonymous letter from a woman who claimed something had been stealing apples from her back porch for 3 consecutive nights. Attached were photographs showing a red-eyed primate peering through foliage near the Mayaka River. The woman believed it to be an escaped orangutan. Some researchers have echoed this explanation, suggesting skunk apes may be descendants of exotic animals that escaped from traveling circuses common in Florida during the mid-20th century. Video evidence has only deepened the mystery. On July 8, 2000, footage emerged showing a large, hair-covered humanoid wading through the Everglades swamps. Years later, on October 28, 2013, a witness in Mississippi recorded a creature crouched in shallow water, methodically tearing bark from a tree. skeptics argue these sightings are nothing more than hoaxes or people in costumes. The United States National Park Service dismisses the skunk ape as a hoax. Yet for those who claim to have seen it, smelled it, heard it moving through the reeds at night, the creature is no myth. In the depths of the southern swamps, something is said to be watching, waiting, and leaving its presence behind long after it disappears. In the summer of 2013, a YouTuber named Frank, known for documenting his explorations of abandoned mines, set out to investigate the Horton mine in Nevada. His channel doesn't normally involve anything paranormal, but this visit proved to be an exception. A barricade bearing a clear danger warning blocked the entrance, but Frank chose to proceed anyway, stepping into a mine that dated back to the 1800s. Inside, water pooled unnervingly along the tunnel floor, while rusted chains and lengths of ventilation tubing hung from the ceiling. Although Frank was accustomed to venturing deep underground, he stopped short this time, later describing the tunnel as one of the most unsettling he had ever entered. He reported an overwhelming sensation of being watched, accompanied by the feeling that whatever was present did not want him to continue.
I'll go a few feet further in and check it out, but I think I'm going to pass on this one. This is one of the creepiest mine tunnels I've ever been in, just because of how dilapidated it is and all these chains hanging down from the overhead, and there's a shot looking down the tunnel, even further of it. Still pretty wet.
Moments later, one of the chains suspended from the ceiling began swinging from side to side. The other ones didn't.
Looking down the tunnel here. I don't know why that one chain is swinging back there. Don't know if you can see that in the video or not.
Almost immediately, the temperature dropped, and Frank felt what he described as a sudden, hostile presence, something negative and distinctly otherworldly.
Yeah, this mine definitely has a very spooky vibe to it, so I'm going to head back out and check out the other stuff that's here. This is just too wet, too muddy, and obviously something is making the chains swing, so time to get the hell out of here.
The footage later appeared on a TV show called Strange Evidence on the Science Channel, where specialists analyzed the video and concluded that it was legit. A year after the initial encounter, Frank returned to the Horton mine. This time, the tunnels were filled with a strange, lingering mist, as if the mine itself had not forgotten his first visit.
Okay, the tunnel continues forward there, and I've reached the first little alcove here.
There have been numerous stories about the men in black, but rarely do we ever see photographic evidence of them. That all changed on October 14th, 2008, at the Sheraton Fallsview Hotel near Niagara Falls. Two men dressed in black walked into the building. They were looking for the hotel manager named Shane Sovar, who earlier had witnessed a triangular UFO outside of the hotel. He was with a security guard who saw it as well. An investigation team called the Aerial Phenomenon Investigations looked into the incident, and 3 weeks later, these men in black showed up at the hotel lobby. They asked for Shane, but the person at the front desk said he was not present at the time. The men in black didn't seem to believe him, so they walked around the hotel. They started talking about governments and conspiracies, and according to 3 eyewitnesses, they terrified the staff. One of the staffers ended up crying when recounting her story. The men in black looked exactly the same as if twins. They wore matching black trench coats, ties, and old-fashioned fedora hats. They were tall and the same height, but most unnerving of all, their face was extremely pale, and they had no eyebrows or eyelashes. Their eyes were abnormally large and blue, and when they stared at you, it was as if they knew what you were thinking. The men in black were so unusual and creepy that the hotel staff shared this CCTV footage. Some believe the men in black are government agents sent to intimidate witnesses into silence. Others suggest something far stranger, that they were not human at all, but only wearing the appearance of men. Whatever they were, they arrived without warning, asked the right questions, and left behind a lingering fear that has never entirely faded. In 2012, in Iceland, a long, serpentine form was recorded moving beneath the frozen surface of Lagarfljót, a glacial-fed freshwater lake that lies below sea level. The lake is notorious for its near-zero visibility, clouded by heavy silt, making anything seen beneath its surface difficult to identify. Yet in the video, a dark, worm-like shape appears to slither through the icy water with deliberate motion. The creature is known as Iceland's Loch Ness monster, or in local folklore, the Lagarfljót worm, which is said to measure anywhere from 40 to 300 feet in length. Legends describe it as capable of leaving the water entirely, coiling its massive body and slithering into the woods. Accounts of the creature date back to at least 1345. According to legend, a woman placed a small worm inside a gold ring, but when it grew, she threw both the ring and the creature into the lake. From that moment on, appearances of the worm were said to precede tragedy. Skeptics argue the footage depicts nothing supernatural. Some suggest it is a long, inanimate object shaped like a serpent that's being propelled by something. Others believe it could be a submerged fishing net moving via the rapid current. Despite these explanations, the controversy deepened when, in 2012, an Icelandic panel voted, by a narrow 7-6 margin, to authenticate the video as genuine, even awarding prize money to the filmmaker. The decision drew criticism, with detractors accusing officials of manufacturing intrigue to promote cryptid tourism. Yet the debate did not end there. In August 2014, an Icelandic Truth Commission reported that while its members were divided, they found no definitive reason to dismiss the existence of the creature. In the murky depths of Lagarfljót, certainty remains elusive, and whatever moves beneath the surface has never truly been laid to rest. The Battle of Gettysburg remains the bloodiest conflict of the U.S. Civil War, claiming more than 50,000 casualties. Though the fighting ended over 160 years ago, some believe not everyone ever left the field. In November 2001, while vacationing in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a family noticed something unusual along the tree line. They retrieved a camcorder and began recording. What appears in the footage are pale, drifting shapes, white, wispy, ethereal apparitions that materialize and vanish both near the ground and high among the trees. There are several of them, moving with a slow, deliberate purpose.
Okay. Don't move in there. No, there's a motorcycle. See?
I don't see nothing down there. Can't be the motorcycles, honey. There's another sparkle. You see what I'm saying?
What is that?
tree.
No. You moved it, right? Right there. See it?
Uh-huh.
Look.
There's nobody there. I can't see.
Look. Isn't it those people?
Can't be.
There's
It's
nobody.
not up in the trees.
There's nobody down there no more. See?
When examined more closely, the shapes resemble figures, possibly soldiers, each seeming to carry something slung over a shoulder, like sacks or gear. To believers, this suggests a residual haunting, a theory in which intense emotional events leave behind an imprint that replays itself repeatedly, like a recording etched into the landscape. The video is often cited as one of the most compelling ghost recordings ever captured. It was filmed in 2001, before advanced video editing software was widely accessible to the public, lending it an air of authenticity that continues to unsettle viewers. If the footage is genuine, then Gettysburg may not simply be a historical site, but a place where the past still moves, quietly and endlessly among the trees.